and they identified it as the #1 project, in their jurisdiction, the Cape Breton Victoria District School Board. So I am glad to hear that there's been additional drilling, and I'm glad to see the minister has been very vigilant on this and has been very aggressive to the point where she has told me on many occasions, we're trying. And I appreciate that. And the people of Glace Bay, I would assume, appreciate that. And I know that in the end run, we're going to get to where we're going. But I would impress upon the minister, another delay of any great length is not going to be acceptable. Another delay is not going to be accepted by the people of Glace Bay, and I can tell you they are watching, and they are watching very closely as to what this government does in terms of treating them fairly, because this is not a matter of playing politics. This is a matter of a duly elected school board selecting a site and then the Department of Education looking for it. And I also wanted to clarify just a couple of more things. Number one, I know that there were 21 sites that were visited by the Department of, I was going to say Public Works, you call it Infrastructure and Infrastructure Renewal and Department of Transportation now. To be clear, to be perfectly clear, not all of those 21 sites were disallowed because of subsidence, because of underground workings. Some of them were not taken because of transportation concerns. Some of them weren't taken because they were too close to the high school, I was told in one case, and apparently some educators don't think a high school should be next to a junior high. Well, in Glace Bay right now, you could put them on top of each other, and I don't think we'd really care. But not all of the concerns had to do with underground mining. The majority of them did, but not all of them did. And as late as of yesterday, I was contacted by a landowner in Glace Bay who has well over the 10 acres required to put a junior high school on, that he informed the district school board about and the Department of Education that he had the land available, and he's never been contacted. Never been contacted. I have the gentleman's name and number if the minister would like to have it after I'm finished. But to know that there's still sites out there, and again, to caution that a delay is not acceptable, but there are still sites out there that have not been looked at, then we know somewhere along the line this has gone down a street with, many off-roads, let's say. And I don't know why, and I don't know how. But what I do know is that it's not going to be acceptable any longer to delay this school for any length of time. And I don't mean that as a threat to the minister. I do not mean that as a threat to the minister. But I would mean it as a caution to the minister. You've already got enough people looking for reasons to bring down your government. Don't give them another reason, Madam Minister. Give them the answer. And the answer here is not only the political thing to do, it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do to put a junior high school immediately in Glace Bay, because there are hundreds and hundreds of students who require that school to get a proper education. And they are not being treated fairly, and they are not being treated equally with a lot of other students in this province who are receiving their education in facilities that serve them much better than the facilities that they are attending school in now. Having said all that, Mr. Chair, I will now turn over the remainder of my time to my colleague from Kings West.
Thank you. The honourable member from Kings West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I guess the only other thing that could happen tonight is maybe a spontaneous ministerial statement for my colleague to finally get his school. But I guess it will come eventually. But I would caution the minister about giving the deputy a slap on the wrist. After all, this is the year of pink education, so we don't want to go there. So anyway, to move to another area. Very important area, and pleased to have ANSA represented as we talk about post-secondary education. And this is my first beginnings on this very, very important topic. One of the things that I do want to compliment the minister on is the fact that this time around with the MOU, we had students engaged in that very, very important dialogue and process. So that was a wonderful improvement over the first MOU. We're at the 11th hour. Students were pulled in to make it look like there was some student engagement, but this time there was truly that event did take place. One of the things that is becoming very apparent in our province around post-secondary, in light of a whole number of what I would call emerging developments, and my colleague, the member for Citadel, talked about tonight, and that is a comprehensive review of post-secondary education. We have one university laying off personnel, CBU. We have Acadia with enrollment and financial troubles. We have other universities who will in fact see the impact of declining enrollment, and especially since the funding formula is enrollment based. And we all know what a high percentage in Nova Scotia the operational dollar that comes from tuitions. And that's why, of course, when tuitions are frozen in this province, giving universities the monies that they would obviously lose by freezing the tuitions does need to be accounted for. I think one of the real needs that our university communities are going to need is this review. What of the future? And to use the term coined by student representatives from across the province, as the minister alluded to, is plan or perish. And with 11 universities in this province, the enrollment cohorts that are available from our province and other provinces as well are in decline. We're seeing a stronger movement towards the community colleges than what we've traditionally had in this province. Points to many, many challenges. The first area that I would like to ask the minister about, has her government approached Ottawa, the federal government, on the issue of funding following students from other provinces to Nova Scotia, and also a pan-Canadian approach to funding post-secondary education to a much greater extent than what we currently have. So if the minister would comment on that, please.
Thank you. The Honourable the Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And before I get to the question, I would like to acknowledge, if she's still here, maybe she's Paris here, and all members of ANSA, because I have met with them frequently. They did sit on the negotiating team for the MOU. They did provide a lot of insight, a lot of leadership. They showed a lot of respect for the process, and they were certainly welcomed members as part of that. So I would like to thank them for serving in that capacity and coming up with an MOU that I believe meets the needs of students and universities and the government. So thanks to all of the representatives who were there at that time. I also want to speak to the issue of the comprehensive review. And we know that we do have 11 universities here in the province, highly regarded across Canada, well respected, and famous for their high standard. And in fact, Nova Scotia has sometimes been called the education province of Canada, because we have so many universities per capita and we have such a high standard of training programs and quality education there. So there's a great deal of pride in what we have in those universities, and we want to see them all have success. We also, however, recognize, and they do as well, the challenges that face them. Mr. Chair, we currently have about 2,000 fewer students graduating from our high schools each year. That means 2,000 fewer students to go on to university, or have that as one of their options. We also recognize that the community college is attractive to a lot of students, and so universities are challenged with keeping up their enrollments, and they're constantly doing recruiting both in Canada and internationally for students to come to their universities. And so all of those challenges, I think, have caused us to look at, what are we delivering, how are we delivering it, where are we delivering it, and thus sometimes people say you cannot always continue to do what you're doing with the world changing around you. And I think the call from the students to look at what they call the plan or perish, but the comprehensive review, is timely. And we have agreed to work along with the students as part of that process, and to make sure that we kick that off in the fall with a mandate that will certainly give us some future direction.
Thank you. The honourable member from Kings West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate what the minister has said, because I think that kind of engagement is very, very needed. Universities are going through perhaps one of the more challenging times that we have seen in this province, and how they will deal with some of those, the financial challenges, perhaps right-sizing, which would be a very, very big and new concept for our universities after the numbers of students that they've traditionally had at those institutions. So I look forward to that process, and hopefully it will be one that's formalized and announced and will move forward over the next period of time. The MOU does have, I believe, many strengths to it, and it's again one of the things that I know the deputy will remember. First, when I came to this House, having toured some of the universities, they were wanting multi-year funding. They wanted to know where things were going to give some stability for at least a 3-year period. So that's a very, very good part of this. The first question, and the ones I'll have the most around, of course, are the financing of students' education and the plan that's in the MOU. With the special funding for deferred maintenance has been included in the operating grant amounts given, and it says in 2008 the deferred maintenance allowance will equal $353,614. Is that? I'm just wondering about those figures. Is that what is specifically targeted for deferred maintenance? If I could have a little explanation of that dollar.
Thank you. The Honourable the Minister of Education.
Mr. Chair, to the member, it's my understanding that the reference in the MOU to that is in addition to funding that they normally would get, but it was to recognize that concern with deferred maintenance. So there was an agreement in the MOU to look at that additional funding, and also, as I spoke earlier, about the trust fund that has been set up, which again crown share dollars in a form of a trust that will be administered by the university presidents to help them deal with their infrastructure issues. So there certainly was an acknowledgement and a couple of steps towards working with them on that issue.
Thank you. The honourable member from Kings West.
Chair, and pleased to hear that explanation, as I thought that was the dollar figure for deferred maintenance when we know the extent that universities currently collectively add up to in our province. So the area that I am, I guess, wondersome about, and again, my colleague from Citadel did bring this up, and that is the Nova Scotia student loan, and therefore the grant does not kick in, doesn't start until about $7,000, I believe, of a Canada student loan is needed by a student. So based on the current information that we have, what percentage then of students are likely to get some part of a grant towards their tuition? Because what this really means is that if students require the full Canada student loan and they qualify for $7,000, well, that's already $28,000 of debt during 4 years of university, because normally that's the pattern that follows once they have set their course in the first year of their financial requirements. So it is still concerning that we're already at that given point that there'll be $28,000 of debt before we get a little bit of help from the province in terms of 20% of the student loan being non-refundable from figures of, and I have it here, of around $700 up to $1,500. So I'm just wondering what percentage of Nova Scotia students will actually be helped by this grant.
Thank you. The Honourable the Minister of Education.
For somewhere.
I think we do.
Mr. Chair, to the member, I don't want to give you a number that's inaccurate. I know I have it here somewhere, but we certainly did calculate the number of students who would benefit from each of these programs. So if perhaps I could, Mr. Chair, provide that information to the member at a later time. Thank you.
The Honourable the member for Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm asking that question because it does give the initial view that there is considerable help available to Nova Scotia students. Now, we know that there is still probably at least 40% of the students in Nova Scotia who qualify to go to university have no family resources to use towards their education. So when we're talking about a very significant needs-based grants, we truly haven't moved down that road. And I bring up that point because I still think that's an untapped area for students. When we hear across Nova Scotia, 30 to 40% of our high school graduating students that have the capabilities to go to university, but their economic means is so minimal that looking at going to university, which for 4 years is anywhere from $60,000 to $80,000. That's exactly what it is, 60 to 80, 15,000 a year and more at some universities. That it is an unrealistic view. And I know I had one such student come to my office just a couple of years ago who had all the qualifications, absolutely wanting to go to university, but his family had told him, no, we can't. And so we started to look into all of the possibilities for him. And I must say it was one of the times, and I know many MLAs in here, and I don't mind bringing it up, and I think the minister will appreciate it, but the work of Kevin Chapman at Student Loans is extraordinary in terms of his personal attention. And he engaged every possibility that this young man could tap into to be able to go to Dalhousie, and I'm pleased to say that he's now in his third year there. He also has great theatrical skills, which he fostered while he was at West Kings, and he's now going to specialize in that particular area. So I just feel that there are many, many other Nova Scotians out there like him who have the ability and tremendous potential, but that there's true economic barriers. And I'm wondering if the minister, is still looking at further, perhaps capturing even more students from Nova Scotia with true needs-based grants.
The Honourable the Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, we recognize, and students have told us, that one of the things they wanted us to look at was making university education more affordable, more accessible. And as a result of that, when we did our own internal review of the student assistance programs that we had, we looked at the debt reduction program. That was a program that students, once they graduated, could access, and it was support to help them obviously pay off their loan. But we found when we did our own internal review, Mr. Chair, that that program was very underutilized. We had about $8 million in that program, and it was not being fully utilized. So when we did our internal review, we discovered that, we noticed that. At the same time, the students were saying more upfront money is what we really would appreciate. And good reason for that. We discussed that, and if a student wants to go to university but can't afford to start to go, money at the end of it is of no value to them. So it was a pretty easy step to move that debt reduction money from the end of the four-year program to the front and translate that into a needs-based grant. The way that works is, of course, students have to have a need, and if they apply for and are successful with a Nova Scotia student loan, then that guarantees them that needs-based grant, 20% of their loan. So if they are getting a provincial loan of $5,000, they automatically have $1,000 of that forgiven. So they repay $4,000 instead of $5,000. And that's for each of a four-year program. So that's a significant amount of assistance for them as they move through that. The other thing that I think, we have graduate tax credit at the end. That's $2,000 for students, and that's certainly important. But again, it's after they've completed their degree. So the other thing that we've done is to look at the parental contribution. And I remember when my boys were graduating, and others. Two people income in the family, and the parental contribution was such that our boys didn't qualify. But we've made some changes in that, and what happens now, and I'll use this just as an example, but if the gross income in a family is $100,000, the student is still eligible for applying for a loan. In fact, and I'll read you these, in 2004, 2005, parental income, the expected contribution was $16,000. We have now reduced that in 07-08. The parental contribution is only $4,700. So many more students are eligible for a student loan because of that change of parental contribution. So we've made that change. The other thing that we've done up front is to introduce our direct lend initiative. And so when students have to borrow money, they're borrowing it at a much better rate. And in fact, they're borrowing it at prime plus 0.5, as opposed to, they're shaving off about 2% interest. So again, these are things that we've done to try to make that university education more affordable, more accessible, so more of our young people can get into the programs they want. And then, of course, at the end, we have repayment assistance as well. But it's all designed to provide opportunities for our Nova Scotians, our young, bright graduates from high school, to get that post-secondary education that they need. And we know that there aren't many places you can go without at least some post-secondary education. So we take great pride in these initiatives that we've introduced. And again, to reference the students, university students, they have worked with us. They have given us some direction. They have noticed that we have listened, and they appreciate that.
Thank you. The Honourable, the member for Kings West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I haven't done much of a review of the company delivering the student loan program in Nova Scotia. I'm very pleased to see that the province has taken on this initiative. I think the better rate for loans is an excellent move. The part that I'm a little bit wondersome about is I was hoping, if it's not the reality, that it would be fairly seamless between the federal and provincial loan being administered together, and that's why I was hoping to see that the grant part to the student loan would kick in as soon as there was a need for a student to have a loan. And we still have a considerably high percentage of students who haven't made all of the plans for their education over 4 years, as it is quite an investment through the early years of life with an educational investment, an RRSP type investment. So I'm wondering, if they are seamless, then, why aren't we supporting with the grant as soon as a loan need starts to be required? The other part, the other question there is also when students finish and they get the graduate tax credit, do they have to be working in Nova Scotia to receive that, or is it just generally helping Nova Scotia students deal with their loan?
Thank you. The Honourable, the Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to address one of your first questions with respect to the administration of the direct lend, it did go to public tender. A company by the name of Resolve was successful with that tender, and we're hoping that because they have been the successful bidder on that, that federal and provincial loan application will be, as to use your words, seamless. Resolve does administer the federal student loan as well. So that certainly, we believe, will allow that to be easier access and easier process. With respect to the direct lend, before I leave that, we did agree as a government, as a cabinet, that any efficiencies that were realized through the direct lend would be redirected back into student assistance programs. So we're looking forward to working through that and seeing how that unfolds. The question about the student bursary that we have, or the needs-based grant, I'm sorry, the needs-based grant, it is automatic. Once a student qualifies for a Nova Scotia student loan, they automatically qualify for that 20% reduction, which means that, as I said, a $5,000 loan, they automatically have $1,000 of that forgiven. So that is, again, to try to cut down on the I guess, the paperwork and moving through that, so students don't get tied up and frustrated and concerned about that process. So that becomes an automatic, and then at the end, I think your last question had to do with the tax credit, and the tax credit, of course, applies on their income tax. So when they file their Nova Scotia income tax, they will get their student tax credit, their graduate tax credit, which for this upcoming year is $2,000.
Thank you. The honourable member for Kings West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I know that there is some concern around the fact that the grant for out-of-province students is only cutting in the third year. We definitely understand why international students pay the fee they do. Now we will have 3 levels of tuition in the province, and as this peaks at $1,000, I'm wondering if there are any other examples in the country where we have this type of tuition arrangement whereby other Canadians are treated considerably different than our students. Not to say that we shouldn't have some type of grant program for our Nova Scotia students. In fact, this is one of the areas that we've been calling for. And as I alluded to in my previous question, one of the research shows that this is perhaps the best area to help students access post-secondary, is with real needs-based grants. So I'm just wondering if there is some concern, if in fact this shows a trend beyond a normal dip in out-of-province enrollment in our universities. Is the minister prepared to take a second look inside the MOU if this becomes a real issue?
Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would like to make it clear that the freezing of the tuition in the MOU was for all students. So all students attending universities in Nova Scotia have their tuition frozen. The student bursary that we have is specific to Nova Scotia students. And with the, in that third year, when the differential reaches $1,000, then there would be a bursary for out-of-province students so that differential does not grow beyond $1,000. But they do have their tuition frozen the same as all others. I would like to comment on the rationale, I guess, for looking at Nova Scotia students only for the bursary. And we know that the funding that comes from the federal government for post-secondary education is on a per capita basis. So the funding that goes for the students from other provinces stays in their province. It does not follow the student. And our request of the federal government is to have that follow the student. That would be of significant importance to us. We do have 31% of our students in our universities who come from outside the province. And so we've certainly taken that request to Ottawa. I have agreed with the students to actually go with them to make sure that message is delivered in person. it is important to this province. And when you have that large number coming from outside, it makes a big difference. So that's the rationale for taking it to only Nova Scotia students. But I will repeat in some of my discussions with students and when I meet with the student executives or student councils from universities, student unions, many of them are from out of province. And so I've asked them the question, how would they distribute the money? And they understand full well the per capita issue. They know that the funding that we get is based on students from Nova Scotia. And, you know, some of them have admitted that, yes, we would like to have that money, but the comment that I will always remember and repeat many times is, look after Nova Scotia students first. And that came from a student from outside the province. And I think that sends a very strong message. I think the other message that we get from this is that students from outside Nova Scotia come here to study because they value the quality of the programs our universities deliver. And they know the cost of tuition when they come here, but they make that choice. That's not to say that we don't want to encourage more students to come and to make it easier and more accessible for them to come here. But I do not believe that the cost of tuition is the determining factor when they're looking at what university they will attend. I do believe it's the quality of the program. So we took all of that into consideration. We are not the only jurisdiction that has a differential between Nova Scotia or between out-of-province students and home province students. That's not a reason to have one, but it's certainly an indication that other provinces are wrestling with that as well. And so we believe that those two initiatives, freezing tuition for all students, is inviting to students from any part of the world, and that the bursary that we offer is a way of saying we value our Nova Scotia students.
Thank you. The honourable member for Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and pleased to hear the Minister speak very strongly about this particular area. You know, it just raises an iota of concern, at least that much, because it is a new initiative for this province, and I'm hoping it does work out. And on the other side of upfront grants, I hope it will be an area that we will continue to look at in this province, because we know that university is still not accessible to all students. And even at the community college level, we had Joan MacArthur Blair, the president of Nova Scotia Community College, actually engage in a swim in Europe to raise money. And perhaps as much as anything, the media attention was to raise a concern about access at the community college level, and of course at our universities as well. So it is still a big issue in this province. Some progress has been made, and certainly it was a very friendly post-secondary budget for Nova Scotia that we are addressing these needs, because we know that the trend for students to go to other provinces has some history. We've always had students go to other provinces, but not on the scale that we currently have happening. And I'm wondering if the Minister of Education, the Department of Education, through our schools, through our guidance departments, are prepared to look at an initiative beyond having career days and universities come in and give their pitch as to why they should come to a particular institution, which are wonderful days, very informative days, and in fact help students in their decision-making process.
What do you think?
But I'm wondering about almost a bit of a campaign for our high school students, which make up about 60% of students. I believe that's the rough figure that go to our universities. If we can have a campaign to get students to reverse some of the current trend. As I was sharing with the minister just a few days ago, I had a color insert from the Memorial University newspaper, which really highlights what has gone on. In 2003, there were 304 Nova Scotians at Memorial. In 2007-8 school year, there are 1,034. You know, I think the minister may need to be encouraged to do a rant as well as Rick Mercer to hold on to our Nova Scotians and keep them going to school here. But all aside, I believe an education campaign to talk about the tremendous strengths of our universities needs to be foremost as bodies continue to exit from our province. And I'm wondering if there are some areas that the department and the minister are looking at to bolster during this transitionary time. I think we are in a transition time, and that universities will do some right-sizing, also some emphasis on the specialty programs that they do offer. Just as we did, and I applaud the government for giving CBU a program, and again taking teacher training to Cape Breton. I think some of that kind of initiative will need to be taken to hold on to our enrollments. But I'm wondering if the minister and the department are looking at any initiatives for engaging Nova Scotia high school students to look stronger and first and foremost at their own universities.
Thank you. The Honourable, the Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And you know, we do have career days in schools. We do have universities that are actively recruiting our students. But what we've tried to do from the department's perspective is to give students as much information as we possibly can about career options at the end of grade 12. But to start that, in fact, we even start that at grade 9 with some career choices information, because we want them to have, as I said, as much information so it's an informed decision that they make by the time they get to the end of grade 12. The other thing we do to, again, give them more exposure and more information is through our very successful and very popular O2 program. And our arrangement with the community college there is that students that graduate from the O2 program are automatically accepted and have a seat at the community college. So as they move through that, it's quite seamless. They know what they want to do, they know where they want to go, and they have that seat there at the community college. The other thing that's happening is that I talked about 2,000 fewer students in our system, and the competition is great out there between and among the community college and the universities. But I see a trend, Mr. Speaker, for that competition to turn to cooperation, because a number of the universities are now forming articulation agreements with the community college so that, again, students can move from a community college program into university and get some credit for the courses they've completed. And the reverse of that, students who have a degree and then want to specialize in something through a community college program go back and forth. So that movement back and forth, seamless movement and recognition that the programs are valued, I think gives students a lot more encouragement to stay here and to participate in those programs that we deliver. And it's no longer, if you go to community college, you don't go to university. And I think that's a stigma that we have to get away from. And I think that the quality of programming at the community college and the articulation agreements is helping to take that away. So we're, I guess, opening up and broadening the opportunities for students. But we believe that beginning in grade 9 to help kids make decisions about where they want to go and what they want to do is a start. Your idea of, getting a Rick Mercer around, and it might be a new career for me, you never know, but I think we need to make sure that we sell to our students what we have, and getting the information in their hands is a key.
Thank you. The honour member's time has expired. The chair now recognizes the honour member from Halifax Fairview.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. You know, Mr. Speaker, whether it is as the critic for Acadian Affairs, or as the parent of children in French immersion, or as a member of Canadian Parents for French, I think it's incumbent to spend at least a few minutes on the question of early French immersion. Recently, the government of New Brunswick has announced the abolition of early French immersion, favouring a whole different structure for French immersion in that province. Now, Mr. Chairman, I have taken a great interest in this topic. I recently went to see Dr. Fred Genesee, an expert from McGill University, the country's leading expert on second language education, who said that he was puzzled by the approach of the New Brunswick government, that it was not supported by the academic research, and he did not understand why they were doing what they were doing. Now, in this province, French immersion is very popular. So my question to the minister is this: to all of the students in French immersion, to their families, to the teachers, to everybody who supports early French immersion, will the minister state clearly and unequivocally that this government rejects the approach of the government of New Brunswick?
Thank you. The Honourable, the Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the member. When the announcement was made in New Brunswick, I watched that with interest, as did all of the folks in my department, and I was asked the question, is this the way Nova Scotia plans to go? Are you going to follow suit? And my answer then is the same answer that I will give today, or tonight, is that we believe that the early and late immersion programs that we currently have in this province are supported and appreciated by the parents whose students attend those. We are satisfied that we are meeting the needs of those students at this point in time, and we always continue to monitor all of our curriculum and all of our delivery, but at this point in time we have no intent of following the model that is currently being introduced in New Brunswick.
Thank you. The honourable member from Halifax Fairview.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is very important that there be no equivocation on this point. It is so difficult to recruit teachers for French immersion, and any hint from this government that they are not fully committed to French immersion is going to make it virtually impossible to attract teachers to this province. So I do want to ask again very clearly and unequivocally, will the minister say that early French immersion in this province is safe for the foreseeable future?
The Honourable, the Minister of Education.
Mr. Chairman, to the member opposite, what I will say is that we believe that the model for French immersion that we currently have in this province is working, and if it's working, we have no plan to stop it.
Thank you. Order, please. The time allotted for debate on the estimates in committee and supply today has now expired. The Honourable, the Deputy Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move that you now do rise and the committee report progress.
Motion is carried. Order, please. Order, please. The chairman of the Committee on Supply reports
that the committee has made considerable progress, and begs leave to sit again.
the report is tabled. The Honourable, the Deputy Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would you please call public bills for second reading?
Public bills for second reading.
Thank you. Bill number 146, the Motor Vehicle Act.
Bill number
Continue
146, the Motor Vehicle Act. The Honourable, the member for Queens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as I was saying, I'm pleased to rise and speak to Bill number 146, an act to amend Chapter 293 of the Motor Vehicle Act. I thank the Minister for bringing this bill forward. It's a bill I feel we can support. Some of the items of the bill are clearly housekeeping items, while others are clarification and/or new provisions to be added to the Act, such as the clarity around ignition interlock pilot projects. The provision giving law enforcement more clarification and the ability to seize, impound, and dispose of vehicles may allow for a more efficient process and will enable law enforcement to seize or impound vehicles that could be used in criminal activity and vehicles driven by delinquent drivers. There are some cautions, however. We would want the Minister to ensure that the bill does not allow for indiscriminate seizures of vehicles whose owners perhaps have accumulated a small number of parking tickets, or the safety inspection for a newer vehicle has run out by a few days. If the bill's intent is to deal effectively with habitual delinquent drivers who drive while suspended or with no insurance, or who are impaired, or who are using the vehicles for criminal activity, then this is clearly a good bill. Another feature of the bill we can support are the provisions for the registry and law enforcement to deal effectively with impounded vehicles. Possible transfer of ownership to impound facility operators of impounded vehicles with little value or whose owners have not claimed them or have not taken responsibility for paying storage fees will allow for a more efficient and cost-effective disposal of those vehicles. Another aspect of this bill that we do support are the deterrence and penalties for driving while suspended or while one's privilege to obtain a license has been cancelled. We are concerned, though, that the doubling of fines may result in other difficulties for the registrar and law enforcement. The collection and penalties for default of fines could pose unforeseen added backlogs in the court system. But hopefully, unforeseen backlogs. Hopefully, the message of increased penalties will be enough to deter drivers and make them think twice before getting behind the wheel while their license has been revoked, suspended, or cancelled. Mr. Speaker, we do feel we can support this bill, and with those cautions to the Minister as he moves forward and tweaks this bill, I feel that it will be a good piece of legislation. So I'll close by saying that in essence this is a good bill. And again, with tweaking, it will provide more clarity for drivers and law enforcement and ensure more safety on our streets and highways. This bill has our support, and we look forward to it moving to law amendments and receiving response from interested parties. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes the honourable member from Cape Breton South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. On a few comments on behalf of the member from Clare, who is otherwise engaged at the present time. I'd like to just say that we're pleased that the Minister has brought this bill forward, Bill 146, and it's a bill that makes some significant changes in the Motor Vehicle Act, and actually in 3 areas of importance. They're amended the ignition interlock program, the vehicle impoundment, and the significance of the driver fines with suspended licenses and that. We've heard the Minister give his preamble on the bill, and we certainly don't want to hold this bill up, Mr. Speaker. We'd like to see what's going to happen at law amendments with this bill, and if there is sufficient interest to come to law amendments and talk about the bill, then it will give us a better idea to judge some public opinion on this particular piece of legislation. So with those few comments, we'll be supporting this bill at second reading.
Thank you. I'll recognize the Honourable the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal to close debate on Bill 146.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to, first of all, thank my honourable colleagues opposite for their comments. I can tell you we will take those in consideration. As well, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank you as well for your meeting with myself and the honourable member for the official opposition, the critic for Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal, for your comments, and certainly look forward to as well law amendments. A very important bill in regards to road safety, and I think it will go along to help and make our roads safer for Nova Scotians. So, Mr. Speaker, it's a great privilege. So I move second reading of Bill number 146.
Motion is for second reading on Bill number 146. Is the House ready for the question? Question has been called. Would all those in favour of the motion please say aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried.
Bill number 146, an act to amend Chapter 293 of the Revised Statutes 1989, the Motor Vehicle Act.
Order that this bill be referred to the Committee on Law Amendments. The Honourable the Government House Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. That concludes the government business for today. I would move that the House do now rise and meet again tomorrow at the hour of 12 noon and meet until 8 o'clock p.m. Following the daily routine and question period, we'll have the debate going into supply, the debate on estimates, and following that we will go to government business, public bills for second reading, bill number continuation on 146, bill number 157, 120, 30, 31, 33, 48, 51, and 56. Thank you.
Thank you. The motion before the House is for the House to rise and meet again tomorrow at 12 noon. Is the House ready for the question? Question has been called. All those in favour of the motion please say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. The House stands adjourned until 12 noon tomorrow.